The U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act, as amended by the Refugee Act of 1980, authorizes the United States to admit refugees. Federal Law 8, United States Code 1522, requires the federal government to consult with state and local governments before refugee replacement. However, with whom they consult is not spelled out in the federal law. It just says consult with state and local governments. This creates an environment in which only a small minority of local governments potentially impacted by the placement might know that a placement is being considered or about to take place. Therefore, the federal government could consult with one staff person or one local governmental unelected official, despite multiple people and governments being critical stakeholders. The required consultation by the federal government does not ensure adequate public or local government stakeholder awareness and engagement. In order to protect the authority, jurisdiction, and consultation rights of local governmental bodies in regards to federal refugee resettlement efforts, AB 1004 establishes a process of notification that is concise, easy to implement, and manageable. As counties are the primary funding source in local regions for health and human services, services with which the refugees would need to access after the initial 90-day period of federal assistance when it runs out, the bill establishes a county committee comprised of a selected representative from each affected local governmental body within the respective affected county. Due to the infrequent nature of refugee resettlement, a designee or the committee is only required once a governmental body has been notified of a possible resettlement in their jurisdiction. I cannot emphasize this enough, Chair, that it is important to note that AB 1004 establishes a process for communication. It does not address, nor is it intended to address, the merits of refugee resettlement, impact to the economy, impact on law enforcement, schools, or county municipal services, or pros and cons that impact on the citizens of the community. Those areas of evaluation are left to the local elected governmental bodies to assess. This bill before us today simply allows elected local governmental officials notification as they are key stakeholders in the refugee resettlement process. Now, I need to explain how this bill came up because you're thinking, wow, this is from, where did this come from? We have a situation that has, the best word to say is blown up in Eau Claire and the surrounding territories, Chippewa Valley, and in the area, which is a part of the state that I represent. We had an unelected city manager contact a third party, they're called a VOLAG, they're voluntary agencies, third-party agencies, usually nonprofit, that settle refugees in coordination with the federal government. And so we had an unelected official contact one of these agencies and said, bring us refugees. And this person did not notify the city council. They did go and coordinate with the county manager of Eau Claire County, but didn't notify the county board, didn't notify any county sheriff, didn't notify any other counties that are affected because the city of Eau Claire spills over into Chippewa County. And this started in spring of 2023, and no one found out about it until a news person was reading in some other publication about there was going to be some refugee resettlement in Eau Claire. And then they published a news story on it. So the elected officials found out all at the same time in October, many months after this process started. There has been a huge public outcry. And whether, like again, this is not about whether refugees should come or not. It's just that nobody had any notification, and the governmental officials had no say and were not involved in this very important process because it is our elected officials that know whether we have the infrastructure to support them, whether the school district should definitely be involved, can we handle the schools? All that has to be discussed by them. There was a committee hearing yesterday in the Senate, and I just need to mention a few things that were brought up that need to be understood by the bill. One of the things that was brought up that this would be so hard to implement that to to contact people in the 100-mile radius. And by the way, the 100-mile radius of contacting governmental officials, elected officials, is set by the federal government. That's nothing that the Wisconsin control. They're the ones that can, you have a resettlement place like Eau Claire City, they can settle in a 100-mile radius, and that's by federal law. So it's a notification that, like, the city manager would have just let the mayor know, hey, I've invited refugees to come into our city. And then she has 7 days to notify the mayor, whoever the chief elected official is, and then he has 10 days to let everybody in that 100-mile radius, just the chief elected official and the clerk, say, hey, this is happening. And then each individual county can set up a committee to discuss, hey, are we able to do this? How do we want to work with this resettlement agency? So this is not a burdensome, crazy thing. It's one email with, some people on it. And then it was also brought to the fore that, this puts such a strain on, little towns and villages. Well, I serve as a Village of Fall Creek trustee. We have a monthly meeting. All of them. Towns have a monthly meeting, villages have a monthly meeting, cities have at least a monthly meeting. Sometimes they have 2 meetings a month. And we do this all the time. Village president says, hey, who's going to go to the watershed meeting? Who's going to represent us? Hey, who's going to go to the broadband meeting at the county? And, one of us will raise our hand, or they'll say, okay, we're going to send the clerk, or we're going to send the administrator, or whatever. And you appoint someone. This is not a really hard, difficult thing to do. And then the county themselves form the committee. And so it's not like you're going to have 1,000 towns and 100-mile radius all in one big group. No, the county gets together and they have their little group meeting, and then they say, hey, we think our infrastructure can handle it or can't, and they work with the resettlement agency. It's a pretty simple thing. So some agencies, we found out from the hearing yesterday, already do contact the elected officials, but some agencies, and in our case, do not. And so the people that I represent are very angry. What are they angry about? That they are being taxed without being represented, because they are receiving people that they have to pay for, because it's the county services. After 90 days, the federal monies run out, and so those people will need medical care. They're going to need help still in the school system. They probably will not have learned the language. We still have to hire translators. We have to do EMS. We have to do hospital service. We have to do the whole human services thing. And so they just want our governmental officials to be aware of it, the elected officials, so that they can take care of the situation and not just have something foisted on them without any input.